I made a conscious decision a few years ago to step outside of my comfort zone and be raw, honest, and vulnerable with myself and with everyone else. And it was a massive game changer for me. It really turned a lot of things around, and it basically helped me to grow more, because I personally believe that when you are that way, you experience the most growth. Because you're not putting up a wall or anything. I used to literally call it walls down mode, and I would go through this process with my friends and my family when it would come to kind of like sharing my experiences. But something that I wanted to be raw, vulnerable, and honest with is the fact that earlier on in life, even kind of like a few years ago to maybe even like 5 years ago, was actually a time period when it was consistently devastating. I experienced a lot of very severe social anxiety and depression, and it's a very interesting experience, and the reason I call it an experience is because it's exactly that. Just like everything else, it's most definitely real, but it's an experience. And I like to call it more of an experience and less of something that we have, because it's not physical. While it is a feeling, an emotion, and an experience, as I said before, it's not something that we have. It's not something that is a part of us. And interestingly enough, a lot of people, I feel, have a very hard time finding that separation and recognizing that it is not a part of who they are. It's not something that they are. It's not something that they have. It is instead an experience. And metaphysics can actually help us understand the separation between us and that. And the way that it's approached is that there is the experiencer, me, you, and there's the experience, which is anything: happiness, sadness, frustration, madness, insanity, on and on, all these different things. And we oftentimes have a really hard time separating ourselves from our experiences, separating ourselves from our memories. Of course, I just said our. We call them ours. We call them something that we are, something that we have. And it's interesting because the anxiety and depression that I experienced were very profound. I experienced a lot of feeling like I was going to vomit in public when I was experiencing anxiety, and I felt very crippled in life by depression. And something that helped me to transcend these experiences, disidentify, and ultimately live a life free of them. While I'm not perfect, this definitely helped me out, basically recognizing that it's not a part of who we are. That saying, I am anxious, or I am depressed, or saying I have anxiety, or I, have depression, we do ourselves a massive disfavor, because we then even more closely identify with these experiences, and thus potentially make them a part of who we are, which, like I said before, while these experiences are very real, they are not a part of who we are, and we can easily disidentify from them and separate ourselves from them. And for me personally, I remember times when I'd be going to New York City, and I'd get out of the subway station and I'd feel like I was going to vomit. And I would sit paralyzed, unable to move. This is all real stuff. This is literally me being vulnerable, honest, and raw, just because I want to share my experiences with you guys to maybe make a connection. And if there are people out there, I'm sure there are, that are experiencing this, maybe these words can help you. because that would just make me so happy because I'm grateful to be where I am today. I definitely experienced a lot of these things, and it has a lot to do with acceptance. We have a very challenging time accepting what is in the present moment. And interestingly enough, a lot of these, anxious thoughts, these depressive thoughts, they're thoughts projected either from the past, things that we have an inability to accept, or things from the future that we're anticipating. That the things that we have an inability to accept are not going to change, so we have to accept them. I mean, we don't have to. You can, sit in the abyss of anxiousness and depression for as long as you want and not accept them, and it doesn't make anything better. But these anticipations that we have for the future, it's illusory. It's 100% illusory, and almost 100% never happens. And that's one of the most important things that we need to take into consideration when it comes to these experiences, because if we allow ourselves to be crippled by these things without even realizing that almost 100% of these things will never even happen, what's the use of worrying about it? It's a waste of time. I should do another video on this, but we'll see. I just wanted to share my experiences because I think it's profound stuff. So I hope you can find your free as well. Recognize that separation between the experiencer and the experience, and disidentify and realize that it's not something that you have, rather something that you're experiencing, and something that you can liberate yourself from. Yeah.